Hello, Gold Derby, and welcome to the 16th annual Gold Derby TV Awards. This is our nominations announcements of all of the major categories, all of the categories, actually. I'm Marcus James Dixon. I'm here with Susan Wloszczyna, Paul Sheehan, Joyce Ang, Chris Beachum, Daniel Montgomery. Did I name everybody? There's a lot of you on my screen right now.
That sounded like a nominee list.
All of the nominees and the winners will be featured on the IMDb pages of all of the shows, all of the performers. 1,500 people voted for these categories. That's people like you at home watching. And right now you can go vote for the winners at goldderby.com. And you have until Friday, September 13th to cast your votes. And you're not predicting who you think will win. You will be picking your own winners in all of these categories. So we're going to start off right away with Best Animated Series. The nominees for the Gold Derby TV Awards are Big Mouth, Bob's Burgers, BoJack Horseman, Family Guy, The Simpsons, and South Park.
Yeah, that was a pretty locked down top 6. I think the closest to that one in the voting was Love, Death, and Robots, the Netflix show. But yeah, that wasn't too suspenseful a category. And that brings us to our two reality categories. The nominees for Best Reality Host are Nicole Byer for Nailed It, RuPaul Charles for RuPaul's Drag Race, Ellen DeGeneres for Ellen's Game of Games, Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman for Making It, Jeff Probst for Survivor, and the Fab Five from Queer Eye. That was, I believe, the closest to catching them was Jane Lynch for Hollywood Game Night. Just missed out on a nomination.
I'm so happy Jeff Probst is here. He won 4 Emmys in a row, and he's never been nominated again.
They're done with him.
Mm-hmm.
And the nominees for Best Competition Program are American Idol, The Masked Singer, Nailed It, RuPaul's Drag Race, Survivor, and The Voice. And just missing out on a nomination was The Amazing Race. It was just a few points out of a nomination in this category.
The nominees for Variety Talk Series are Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, Late Late Show with James Corden, and Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
Yeah, nothing was really close to that, to those 6. That was pretty locked down, and those are the same as the Emmy nominees. The closest was Late Night with Seth Meyers, and also Busy Tonight had a lot of strong support. But yeah, this top 6 was pretty, fairly locked in.
Oh, that's me. I'm sorry. I'll had 2 in a row. I put the whole thing together and don't even remember. Variety Sketch Series. The nominees are At Home with Amy Sedaris, Documentary Now, Drunk History, Saturday Night Live, Tracy Ullman Show, and Who is America?
I Love You, America with Sarah Silverman came close. I Think You Should Leave also did pretty well in the voting. But I guess there was only room for one America in Variety Sketch Series.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Best Movie Limited Series Supporting Actor. The nominees are George Clooney, Catch-22, Paul Dano, Escape at Dannemora, Chris Messina, Sharp Objects, Stellan Skarsgård, Chernobyl, Ben Whishaw, A Very English Scandal, and Michael Kenneth Williams, When They See Us. So no When They See Us takeover here.
Yeah, although Asante Black, I actually added him to the Gold Derby Awards when he was requested, and he finished in the top 15. So he had strong support. Just missing out on this category. It was really close race for those last few spots. I won't say who the last people to get in were, so as not to influence the winner voting. But Justin Theroux was really close to a nomination for Maniac. Bill Skarsgård for Castle Rock was also surprisingly close for a nomination.
You could have two Skarsgårds.
We could have two Skarsgårds in this category. We almost did, but this ended up being the six. John Leguizamo, who's the other Emmy nominee for When They See Us, he actually scored fewer points than Asante Black in our voting, so he wasn't really close.
You mentioned somebody requested Asante Black. Has anyone ever been requested and then got a nomination, or is that super rare?
It's super rare. I think it's because when people go into the prediction center to vote, sometimes they don't check back. So they if they would have voted for them in the first place, they might not notice that they were there afterwards. I tried to leave messages in the forums to let people know I've added X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't always materialize. We did have people who were requested come close, who I'll mention as we go along.
It's okay. He got the Emmy nomination. So.
Yeah.
And in movie limited supporting actress, we have Patricia Arquette, The Act, Patricia Clarkson, Sharp Objects, Vera Farmiga, When They See Us, Eliza Scanlon, Sharp Objects, Emma Thompson, King Lear, and Emily Watson, Chernobyl.
Yeah, this was a really interesting, like 7 through 10, because just missing out, again, poor Maniac. Sally Field just missed out for Maniac. And then the next three, like 8, 9, and 10, were all from Haunting of Hill House. Kate Siegel, Victoria Pedretti, and Elizabeth Reeser were the next three slots. So they all finished in our top 10, but they didn't quite make the top 6.
Okay, now it's time for the nominees for Movie Limited Series Actor. Mahershala Ali for True Detective. Benicio del Toro, Escape at Dannemora. Hugh Grant, A Very English Scandal. Jared Harris, Chernobyl. Jarrell Jerome, When They See Us. And Sam Rockwell for Fosse Verdon.
This was a pretty secure 6, and they're the same as the Emmy 6. There was no one really who came close enough to really be a threat, but Benedict Cumberbatch was next in line for Brexit, and then actually Ian McShane for Deadwood after that.
So close.
Yeah, not really that close.
I can pretend.
And now it's time for the ladies. Movie Limited Series Actress. Amy Adams for Sharp Objects, Patricia Arquette for Escape at Dannemora, Carla Gugino for The Haunting of Hill House, Joey King for The Act, Emma Stone for Maniac, and Michelle Williams for Fosse Verdon.
I was very glad that Emma Stone got in here at least. This was a pretty rock solid top 6 too. Niecy Nash, who got the Emmy nomination. She was in our top 10, but didn't quite make it into the top 6. And Anjanou Ellis, she was actually 16th in our voting. So
moving on to Best Limited Series, our nominees are Chernobyl, Fosse Verdon, The Haunting of Hill House, Sharp Objects, and When They See Us. So we matched 4 for 5. Which one are we missing here?
We did
Escape
not
at Dannemora.
nominate Escape at Dannemora, which was actually, I mean, these are the top 5. Escape at Dannemora was actually 7th in our voting. A Very English Scandal was 6th, so Scandal got closer to getting in. But yeah, I was a little surprised as I was watching the voting that Escape at Dannemora was never really high in this category. So I wonder if that'll have any kind of reflection at the Emmys.
And then the nominees for Best TV Movie are Black Mirror Bandersnatch, Brexit, Deadwood the Movie, King Lear, and Sense8, the finale movie.
Yay! These 5 were actually pretty locked in. The closest to getting in after that was the other Emmy nominee, My Dinner with Hervé. So no huge surprise there.
Dan, you created like 53 different accounts for Sense8.
I did not. It's entirely above board. Okay, so moving on to the drama categories, starting with the race for Best Drama Guest Actor. The nominees are James Cromwell for Succession, Ron Cephas Jones for This Is Us, Dylan McDermott for American Horror Story Apocalypse, Michael McKean for Better Call Saul, Christopher Maloney for Pose, and Bradley Whitford for The Handmaid's Tale. Just missing out, Titus Burgess for The Good Fight was close behind, and surprisingly strong. I didn't expect him to get as much support as he did, but Jeremy Allen White for Homecoming was in our top 10. So that was an interesting category before we ended up with these 6.
These 6, I mean, this category is the most different from the Emmys I think we've had so far, right? 3 out of 6.
Yeah, we have Cromwell, McDermott, and Maloney getting in here when they missed at the Emmys. And the overlap is Whitford, Cephas Jones, and McKean. And next up, the nominees for Best Drama Guest Actress. The nominees are Laverne Cox, Orange is the New Black, Cherry Jones, The Handmaid's Tale, Jessica Lange, American Horror Story Apocalypse, Felicia Rashad, This Is Us, Cicely Tyson, How to Get Away with Murder, Carice Van Houten, Game of Thrones. So from very different to very the same.
It's amazing with how many guest actresses there are on TV that we managed to match 6 for 6.
Yeah. Coming close here were Hong Chow for Homecoming. She had pretty strong support. Again, surprising. I wouldn't have guessed that. Connie Britton for American Horror Story was in the top 10. So was Joan Collins for American Horror Story, which was interesting.
I created 50 accounts for that one. So now we have drama supporting actor with Alfie Allen from Game of Thrones, Jonathan Banks, Better Call Saul, Bobby Cannavale, Homecoming, Nikolai Coster-Waldau from Game of Thrones, Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones, and Justin Hartley from This Is Us.
Yeah, so we have Cannavale and Hartley in there when they didn't get in at the Emmys. Kieran Culkin was close for a nomination. Surprisingly close. He was in the top 10, and this was an addition, a later addition, was Bradley Walsh from Doctor Who.
Wow.
Was that you too?
That I did not create multiple accounts for Bradley Walsh. I mean, someone requested him from me. I didn't add him because, for me specifically. So Matthew McFadden was also in our top 10 for Succession.
And then drama supporting actress are Gwendolyn Christie, Game of Thrones, Julia Garner, Ozark, Lena Headey, Game of Thrones, Rhea Seehorn from Better Call Saul, Fiona Shaw, Killing Eve, and Maisie Williams, Game of Thrones.
Poor Sophie Turner. But poor Sophie Turner, she was left out. She was not far out. She was like 7th or 8th. The closest were her and India Moore from Pose. Susan Kelechi Watson also had significant support, but again, not quite enough to make this top 6.
Well, the last 2 drama acting categories, nominees for drama actor are Jason Bateman from Ozark, Sterling K. Brown, This Is Us, Kit Harington, Game of Thrones, Richard Madden, Bodyguard, Bob Odenkirk, Better Call Saul, and Billy Porter from Pose.
So that's 5 out of 6. Milo Ventimiglia just missed out. Also surprisingly strong in this category, finished, I think, 8th, was Stefan James for Homecoming. So it's another close call for Homecoming.
Wasn't he in at one point?
He was in early on in the voting, but he started to sink.
I can hear people screaming for Richard Madden's nomination. I bet a lot of people are happy about that.
And Cody Fern for American Horror Story Apocalypse was actually also in our top 10. That one surprised me.
Nominees for drama actress, Amelia Clarke, Game of Thrones, Jodie Comer, Killing Eve, Laura Linney, Ozark, Sandra Oh, Killing Eve, Julia Roberts for Homecoming, and MJ Rodriguez for Pose.
Yeah, and this 6 was pretty, like the top 5 were pretty locked in. I won't say who was the number 6 bubble one who got in, but this was a really close race for that 6th spot. I was surprised how close again, and I didn't make accounts for it, Jodie Whittaker was, at one point, she was a couple of, like, 3 points out of a nomination, and then she eventually, like, sank to 8th place, but still within not too far away. And Christine Baranski for The Good Fight was actually the closest to breaking through in the end in 7th place.
Wow. So Viola, Robin Wright, Mandy Moore, those Emmy nominees weren't even close with us.
Mandy Moore was the closest of those 3. I believe she was in our top 10.
Next, we have Best Drama Episode. Bodyguard, Episode 1. Game of Thrones, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Game of Thrones, The Long Night. Killing Eve, Do You Know How to Dispose of a Body? Pose, Love is the Message. And Pose, Mother of the Year.
Yeah, the closest ones, and it was really close for like those last couple of slots. Just missing out was actually Return to Murder House, American Horror Story Apocalypse. Winner from Better Call Saul also had significant support.
And we have our drama series nominees now. Better Call Saul, Bodyguard, Game of Thrones, Homecoming, Killing Eve, Pose, and This Is Us.
Yeah, this wasn't the most exciting race to watch the nominations for because these 7 were pretty secure most of the time. Ozark, I think, finished just outside. And I think Succession might have had a strong showing too. I don't have those exact totals in front of me.
The next up is Comedy Guest Actor. And the nominees are Luke Kirby, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Peter McNichol for Veep, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Nope, not a third nine. But John Mulaney, Saturday Night Live, Adam Sandler, Saturday Night Live, and Adam Scott for The Good Place.
The closest one to this race was Adam Driver for SNL, but this was another race that wasn't really that hotly contested other than these top 6.
I wonder if Adam Scott got a bump from Big Little Lies airing during voting.
Just the afro wig would do it for me.
Susan, I think you have one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I do. I'm sorry. Comedy Guest Actress. The nominees are Cate Blanchett, Documentary Now, Jane Lynch, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, so she did get a nomination, Sandra Oh, Saturday Night Live, Sally Phillips, Veep, Maya Rudolph, The Good Place, and Fiona Shaw, Fleabag.
Yeah, this was another case where a late edition came close. Kristen Scott Thomas for Fleabag. I ended up moving up to 8th place, I think, for Fleabag. I honestly think if she had been in our prediction center earlier, I think she probably would have made it because she was getting votes really, really aggressively after I added her. So... but the closest to a nomination ended up being Emma Thompson for SNL. So she was the closest miss.
So now we're going to do Comedy Supporting Actor. Our nominees are Titus Burgess, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Anthony Carrigan for Veep, Tony Hale for Veep. Actually, sorry, Anthony Carrigan was for Barry, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Tony Hale for Veep, Andrew Scott for Fleabag, Tony Shalhoub for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and Henry Winkler for Barry.
Yeah, this was a nail biter and a heartbreaker for Schitt's Creek fans. Dan Levy missed by literally 3 points.
Why didn't you make another account?
How many times has Titus won with us?
He won every year.
Every time he's been eligible. So I think the last 4 years in a row.
You can
By
complete this
far
week.
the most of anyone.
You could be your Julie Louis-Dreyfus.
Golder, he came very close to a guest drama guest actor nomination, like he's just a Gold Derby darling. So yeah, he's I don't think he's ever not going to be nominated. He'll probably be nominated for the interactive special next year.
So comedy supporting actress, we have Alex Borstein, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Darcy Carden for The Good Place. She won with us last year. Anna Klumpsky for Veep, Olivia Colman for Fleabag, Betty Gilpin for Glow, and Kate McKinnon, Saturday Night Live.
So that's 5 out of the 8 Emmy nominees, although interestingly, all 8 of the Emmy nominees ended up somewhere in our top 10, including Sean Clifford from Fleabag, who was a late addition and made it all the way up to, I believe, 8th place. So yeah, we agreed with the Emmys, but we just didn't have as many slots for the most part.
And we nominated Darcy Carden.
Yeah, and we nominated Darcy Carden, who won with us last year. She announced the nominations at the Emmys this year. But
I have a feeling
she should like us better.
If there were 9 nominees at the Emmys, Darcy would be 9th.
I'd hope so.
Also, that would be a ridiculous list of like 9 nominees.
Yeah.
And now moving up to the lead performances for comedy. The nominees for Best Comedy Actor are Ted Danson in The Good Place, Michael Douglas, The Kominsky Method, Bill Hader, Barry, Eugene Levy, Schitt's Creek, Jim Parsons, The Big Bang Theory, and Andy Samberg, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And a couple who came close were really interesting. Jim Carrey, it was just missed out for Kidding by not a very wide margin. He was actually in our top 6 for a while, but eventually kind of fell out. And Drew Tarver for the other 2 actually had surprising support.
So close.
He was in 8th place. And then he too, like early on in the voting, he was in our top 6, but eventually
It's because I created
more
50 accounts.
more consensus-y choices started to bubble up. So yeah, that could have been an interesting or an even more interesting category than it was. I always like it when we're different. It's interesting that Jim
Parsons is in here.
Yeah, and and Andy Samberg too. Who's never really gotten the time of day from the Emmys for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So I do like seeing him in there. And we're not just copycats for the Emmys. Eugene Levy was a contender before the Emmys made it cool.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Daniel. So how long did voting go on after Emmy nominations?
About actually less than a week, because voting ended on this past Sunday, which was just about 5 or 6 days after the nominations.
So you had 2 things. You had one, people wanting to be on the winning team and endorsing some of those Emmy surprises, and then maybe people like Jim Parsons fans wanting to at least give him this nomination.
Yeah, there feels like there's a lot of winning team and a lot of avenging the the people who have fallen at the Emmys. It's interesting to see which impulse wins out at these. For Best Comedy Actress, the nominees are Christina Applegate, Dead to Me. That's from Marcus's 30 Accounts. Rachel Brosnahan for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Julia Louis-Dreyfus for Veep. Natasha Lyonne for Russian Doll. Catherine O'Hara for Schitt's Creek. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge for Fleabag. So I think this is the exact agreement.
It's the same as the Emmys, right?
Waller-Bridge, before it was cool, we nominated Fleabag for its first season and her for it. So, welcome to the party, Emmys. We got there first. And this top 6 was pretty locked in. I think the closest actually just missing was Kristen Bell for The Good Place. And Linda Cardellini was in 8th place, but it was like a distant 8th. It was Kristen Bell who missed by really just a few points.
And speaking of Fleabag, we can move on to comedy episodes. This is an individual episode. So Barry is nominated for Ronnie/Lily. And then Fleabag is nominated both for the premiere and then the finale, which was episode 6. The Good Place is nominated for an episode called Janet's. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel for We're Going to the Catskills. And Veep for an episode called Veep.
Mhm.
The closest runner-up in this category that missed out on a nomination surprised me. It was Free Churro from BoJack Horseman.
Really?
And then for comedy series, the nominees are Barry, Fleabag, The Good Place, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Russian Doll, Schitt's Creek, and Veep.
Yeah. Dead to Me was pretty close to a nomination. Glow, I think, was also in our top 10. But this group was pretty strong throughout voting.
3 more categories. None of these are Emmy categories, but ones we enjoy doing every year. And one of my favorites is Breakthrough Performer of the Year. We put together a list of 35 range people that had the biggest jump in their career due to whatever they had done this past season. And we don't attach a particular show because it could be for anything they did on television over the past year. So our 6 nominees are Asa Butterfield, Hannah Gadsby, Jarrell Jerome, Joey King, MJ Rodriguez, and Eliza Scanlon.
The interesting thing here, India Moore just missed out here, just like she just missed out on Best Drama Supporting Actress. So she was a close 7th. The interesting thing about Asa Butterfield, like this is based, I'm sure, almost entirely on his performance in Sex Education, which did surprisingly well in our voting altogether. I didn't think it would really be a factor, and it was in our top 10 for Best Drama Series. And I think Gillian Anderson was maybe 11th for Drama Supporting Actress. So that show had a surprising amount of support, even though it didn't quite have enough.
Next, we have Performer of the Year. The nominees are Amy Adams, Patricia Arquette, Bill Hader, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Billy Porter, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Not far out were Jodie Comer and Sandra Oh. Amelia Clark also had a lot of support in this race, as did Michelle Williams.
And this is the final category, and ensemble of the year. It's Chernobyl, Game of Thrones, The Good Place, Pose, Veep, and When They See Us.
And another interesting one where The Haunting of Hill House is the one that just missed out. So again, it did quite well.
They want to get on there, right?
Them knocking on the door.
No, they're working on my windows.
I like how we have limited series, comedy series, drama series. Like we have a nice mix here.
Yeah, it's like sort of 2, 2, and 2. Which is interesting. And for the vote totals, we had with the most nominations, Game of Thrones with 13, Veep with 8, and then several shows with 7 nominations, including Fleabag, The Good Place, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and Pose. Pose is the most nominated among the new shows this year.
Well, thanks to our whole gang here for making nomination announcements today. You'll see the full list on our homepage in just a couple of minutes. And it's also going to be in our forums where you can discuss these. And I will launch the event here in the next 3 or 4 minutes. So you can go ahead and start making your picks. Unfortunately, you do not get to rank at this point. You get 1 pick per category, and that is your winner pick. You can make your pick, say, today, and then come back later in a couple or 3 weeks. Or even a month from now and change them up if you want. It's completely up to you. I know you're still watching a lot of these shows. You can vote all the way through Friday, September 13th. And then that weekend is the Creative Arts Awards. And we'll make our announcement of winners on that Monday or Tuesday right after Creative Arts, but several days before the primetime ceremony. So thank you all for watching today. And get in there, make your Emmy predictions, your early Grammy predictions. And a whole lot more. MTV is launching yesterday. So lots of things to do in the Prediction Center. And thank you for joining us today.